Wangari Grace, thank you so much for joining us. Please tell us where you're telling from, tell us about your work, and please tell us a story.
So hi everyone. Oh, Christine, I had not seen you. Glad to see you here. My name is Wangari. I'm a storyteller. I am Kenyan and I'm based right here in Kenya, in Nairobi. I am a full-time storyteller and I also write. I'm a children's author. But yes, so let me just turn my hotspot on. I am definitely looking forward to tell a story today. So I want to share a story, and this story does not come from my country. This story comes from all the way in South Africa, because I know that most of us here are actually storytellers. But where did stories come from? I love this particular tale about the origin of stories that comes from the Zulu community in South Africa. Kwasuga suga suga labo, kwatukalo kungatomi. Kwasuga suga suga la mama we, kwatukalo kungatomi. Kwasuga suga suga labo, kwatukalo kungatomi. Kwasuga suga suga la mama we, kwatukalo kungatomi. So they say that a long time ago, when the first man, the first woman, the first people were still living on this earth, there lived a woman whose name was Manzandaba. And Manzandaba lived with her husband, Zenzele, and their children. And oh, their days were full, for they had so much work to do. They would wake up in the morning, they would go out into the farm, they would work there, they would take care of their livestock. And sometimes in the evening, they would take their children down to the river and they would play, throwing stones in the river. Well, Manzadaba and Zenzele and their children were happy. Well, most of the time. You see, there's usually this time of the evening, yeah? When it's too late to do any work. The sun has already gone down, but yet it is too early to sleep. And sometimes the children will complain, "Oh, it's so boring. What can we do?" And Mazadaba would say, "Well, go out and play." "No, it is too dark to play, but it's too early to go to sleep," they would respond. And Zenzele would answer, "I agree. It is a bit boring. You see, there is not enough light for me to do my artwork." For you see, Zenzele had the hands of an artist. Yes, a piece of wood in his hands would turn into anything. A utensil to use in the kitchen, an ornament for the ears, a table, a chair. And so it went for so many days. The children would complain, the husband would complain. And Matadamba went to her neighbors and asked what they did during this time. But she realized that the neighbors also had the same problem. And after a long time of complaining, Manzandamba and Zenzele realized that something had to be done. And Zenzele agreed that he would take care of the family. He would sweep, he would clean, he would cook. He would do whatever it would take for Manzandamba to go and find for them an activity that they would be doing in the evening. And so very early one morning, Manzandamba woke up and made breakfast for her family, and they shared it together. And afterwards, she put some bread and some water and some fruits in a basket, and she hugged her family goodbye, and she set off to go and look for something. Kwasuga suga suga labo, kwatukalo kungatsomi. Kwasuga suga suga la mama we, kwatukalo kungatsomi. Kwasuga suga suga labo, kwatukalo kungatsomi. Kwasuga suga suga la mama we, kwatukalo kungatsomi. Well, I have to say that Mazadaba herself had no idea what she was looking for. But she decided that she was going to ask anyone she came across. And soon enough, she came across Fene, the baboon. And the baboon was quite busy in the morning light, grooming her children, making sure they were clean. And Mazandaba looked at Fene the baboon, and she could actually see herself as a mother in Fene. And she called out and said, Fene, good morning, how are you? I have a question for you. You see, that time of the evening, when it's too early to go to sleep, but it's too late to play around and to work. What do you do, Manzadamba, Fene? What do you do with your children? Fene laughed long and loud. Mazandaba, you can see I have my hands full. I have to clean, I have to make sure the children are fed, I have to keep them safe. And come evening, I am so tired. When my children go to sleep, so do I. Well, Mazandaba nodded in understanding, but she knew that she wanted something came to the forest. And as she went into the forest, it was getting a bit dark because there were so many trees. And that's when he heard it. Zzz, zzz, zzz. She was not sure what was going on because she would follow the voice. And when she came near the sounds, everyone would mute. And so she walked. And she saw at the base of a tree, it was a cricket. And the cricket was making a sound. And Mazandaba called out to the cricket, Cricket, I am sorry to have disturbed you, but I am looking for something. Tell me, cricket, when it's too early to go to sleep, but too late to do any work, what do you do? And the crickets say, well, we sing. That's what we do. And the crickets began their sound. Well, Mazandaba liked the sound of song, but it didn't sound really like it was what she was looking for. So she said goodbye to the cricket and thank you, and she continued walking. And it was now getting even darker because there were so many trees. And that's when she saw it. Lights up in the forest between the trees, dancing and dancing and dancing. And when she got there, she realized that it was a family of fireflies. And she asked the fireflies the same questions. And the fireflies said, we dance. And the fireflies went ahead to give her one hell of a choreographed dance. And Mazandaba really loved the dance, but she wasn't really sure it was what she was looking for. And the fireflies asked, well, if you do not know what you're looking for, how will you know when you find it? And Mazandaba said, when I find it, I will know. And she continued walking. And she was soon out of the forest into a clearing. And the light of the sun was so hot. And she closed her eyes. And she almost stumbled in a family of another animal. And this animal had long ears and, oh yes, it was the family of Noguaja, the rabbit. And the rabbits were so startled that they hopped away. But Mazandaba called out, hey, Noguaja, please, I come in peace. And when Noguaja stopped, Mazandaba asked, Nogwaja, please tell me, at that time of the night, when it's too late to do any work, but yet too early to sleep, what do you and your family do? And at this question, Nogwaja's eyes widened and brightened, and he flopped one ear and then the other and said, we tell stories, of course. Stories. I love the sound of stories. Nogwaja, can you tell me one story? Well, Nogwaja, the hare, was quite a trickster. He had heard about stories, but he did not have any stories himself. So he pretended that he was quite angry and he said, you want me, Nogwaja, to tell you stories at this time of the day? And he hopped away. But Mazadamba had got something. Stories. I don't know what stories are, but they sound like something I would want to have. And she knew who might have the answer. And so she went out of the clearing and she ran 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 until she came to the ocean. And there she waited. She was waiting for Nkwezi the fish eagle. For she knew that Nkwezi was both on land and at the sea, and therefore was likely to know so much more than all the other land animals. And she soon saw Nkwezi high up in the air, flying and flying and swooping down for a fish. She called out, Nkwezi, Nkwezi, Nkwezi. Nkwezi the fish eagle was startled and he dropped his fish. Woman, why are you shouting my name like this? You just made me miss my dinner. Nkwezi, the wise one, the one who walks on land and flies in the air. I am so sorry for that, but I have a question for you. I am looking for stories. Yes, stories. Can you tell me where I can find stories? And Kwezi said, I do not have any stories, but I know somebody who might have stories. Stay here and I will be back. And Mazandaba sat on the shore, opened her basket and she ate. And she waited for 3 days and 3 nights. And on the 3rd day in the evening, Nkwezi came back. And she was not alone, for in the water, swimming, was a big, big sea turtle. And Nkwezi told Mazandamba, well, I do not have the answer to your question, but I have a friend who will get you what you want. And the sea turtle called to Mazandamba, and Mazandamba jumped on the sea turtle and held tightly. And they were soon swimming through the ocean and they went under. And Mazandaba was shocked because it was quite a different world. And they soon came to a different kingdom. Different people. They had come to the world of the spirit people. And when the spirit people saw Mazandamba, they came and looked around and said, woman from the dry lands, what brings you here? Stories. I came for stories. Can you please give me some stories? And the people told her that yes, they had stories in plenty. And they were willing to share the stories with her. And they asked her, well, what can you give us in return? And she said, anything that you would like and I can give, I will definitely give. And they spoke among themselves and they said, you see, we people of the spirit world cannot come into the land into the dry land. Can you get us a picture, Mazandamba, a picture of how life is in your world. And Mazandamba said, a picture? I can definitely get you a picture. And she hopped on the back of the turtle again, and she swam all the way to the surface, and she jumped off, and she agreed with the turtle that they would meet on the first night of the new moon. And she was soon home, and her family, of course, were waiting to see if she came with an answer. And she told Zenzele about her journey and about what the people in the spirit kingdom had asked for a picture. And Zenzele said, a picture? I can give a picture. And he took a big piece of wood and he began to sketch. And soon, on the piece of wood could be seen different animals that the family interacted with, the plants that they grew, people going along their different activities. And soon the neighbors heard about this project that Zenzele was doing, and they came to find out from Mazandamba. And soon it was the night of the full moon, and she was ready. And she took the painting and tied it on her back, and her family and neighbors saw her off to the shores of the great lake. And the sea turtle was there as they had agreed. And she jumped and held, and they were soon in the world of the spirit people. And she gave them this picture that Mazandamba had created. Oh, and they were so happy. And they enjoyed seeing the different ways of life that were different from theirs. And at that, the people also gave her something. They gave her a beautiful necklace for her husband. And then they gave her a shell, a beautiful, beautiful shell, and said, Mazandamba, if you ever need a story, take this shell and put it next to your ear, and you will find a story to tell. And Mazandamba thanked the people and jumped on the sea turtle, and she was soon on the shore, and her family and her neighbors were waiting. And they all went home and they made a big feast. And that night, when the sun went down and it was too late to work, but too early to go to sleep, the people made a big fire, and Mazandamba took a stool and sat on it. And they were soon calling, Mazandamba, a story, tell us a story. And Mazandamba took the shell, put it next to her ear, and she called out, Kwasuga Sugela. And that is how the first story came to our world. And because of her interactions with the crickets and with the fireflies, sometimes Mazandamba would add some songs, some singing in her stories. And she would add some dance and some movement in her stories. And as they told stories that many years ago, the same way that people on the continent tell their stories with song and dance. Kwasuga suga suga la bon, kwatukalo kungatsomi, kwesuga suga suga la mama we, kwatukalo kungatsomi, kwasuga suga suga la bon, kwatukalo kungatsomi, kwasuga suga suga la mama we, kwatukalo kungatsomi.
Thank you so much. So now we learned what to do after the day's work is done before we go to sleep.
Exactly.
What's your favorite thing about that story? What is it really, in what place does it really call out to you?
I think it's in the idea that, sometimes you want something. You're not really sure what it is, but you trust in yourself that when you find it, you will know what it is. And I think so many times, so it is with life, that sometimes you're not really sure what you're looking for. But if you trust yourself that when you find it, you will know. And I've been in so many different instances where that has happened to me. So I think I really resonated with that when I found the story.
Mhm. Anybody, any thoughts, comments, questions?
I just wanted to say how much I appreciate Wangari's physicality with the different characters and such expressiveness. I felt like we were transported right into the story. So thank you so much, Wangari.
Yes, it was very fluid.
I just like to say it's such a thrill to see the story embedded in the natural world and embedded in society and embedded in my consciousness and embedded in the sociology. And I consider myself to be such a product of that whole world. So it's just a pleasure to be brought into that world. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Wangari. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
And we have to make plans. I want to make plans to visit Nairobi.
You definitely should. You definitely should. I think you would enjoy it. I mean, Christine was here about 10, 12 years ago. So I'm sure she can share with you some anecdotes of what to do when you're in Nairobi.
Mhm. Great. Okay.